So another wonderful start of the year, I hope, for many of you. It's been kind of a unusual last few, well, I guess last few weeks. I don't know if you noticed this, but of course, when it comes to things like this, always have the choice, always, to work with the energies and really be present with it and just surrender to what the body is telling you rather than being reactive to it. Especially in this new year, it's probably most likely going to be more active. There's going to be a lot more feelings of energies because it is a collective thing. It's a past life thing. And but always, 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 always have the choice. Is it time to take things to a different direction? I mean, this is more than just about elevating and doing all those things. And the reason why we elevate in the first place is because we're not really trying to, say, be better. We're not trying to escape from the past or escape from anything. It's about being whole and really accepting it. And I still have a lot to go through, and we're all in this together. That's basically. So, but I don't want to put this on any longer. I wanted to talk about the energies that might come forward, especially January 4th will be the what I'm considering the new Mars in Capricorn. So the feeling of this energy of Mars will be much different. It will be in its what is that one called? Its exaltation. So that means Mars will work well with this sign. Mars will feel like it's time to work with. So it's feelings that you've had from the past earlier on with Mars in Sagittarius will feel a lot more, well, you feel a lot more grounded, hopefully. Unless, of course, you have a square. But squares are not there to be like, ooh. Squares are there to wake us up, to keep us awake, to keep us alert, and really be just present. And it's because when we're complacent, then we get shocked, right? So here's the what I see here. Okay, so here's the first chart that I drew up, and I wanted to talk more about how things that might relate to Mars have a lot to do with that energy of action, choices, and because it's a new Mars, I'm calling it a new Mars. You've seen in a few of my other videos, I've decided to make new things like with new, because there is a new moon, and here's one where it's a new beginning when it comes to your own desires, your own passions, what you kind of go for, energies that really relate to the Mars energy of, because I think we need to embrace that part of ourselves and work with it. So let's go with that. I want to kind of briefly go through those who are not really familiar with Mars. It is, of course, your animal nature, your sexuality, sex, desire, sexuality, aggression, assertiveness, virility. Okay. It's also self-preservation. Of course, lust, angst, rage, that sort of male energy, machismo, vigor, impatience, temper, work, strife, surgery, sort of those inflammations. So, and fearlessness, courage, really, willpower, action, anything to do with those kind of things. A lot to do with, like, yes, when you're angry, when you're fighting for something, when you really want to go for something, and you have this, you want to initiate something, could say kind of like initiative, kind of like Aries, but not really. It's not really about initiative. Aries is the initiative part there, but it is the urge to act. Okay, as Judy Hall puts it. So it is courage. It's where we usually expend our greatest energy. Okay. So with Mars in Capricorn, let's take a look where Mars is. down, oh, sorry, right here. Okay. Mars is in 0 degrees Capricorn as of January 4th. It's actually technically January 5, but I went all the way to make sure there was 0 degrees, 0 minutes. And Mars is actually going to be in conjunction with Ixion. So people might think it's like, oh, Ixion. For those who have done some work on Ixion, it feels like, Ixion is known to be like violations, losses of second chances, opportunities. But actually, Ixion apparently has a lot to do with what we really, really want, like I guess you can say your inner nature, like your it's like something carnal. It's related. It's kind of like Mars, actually. So I'm going to go look at my notes here and what I took on Ixion. Okay. Ixion is actually a lot about being creative. Yes, there's mistakes that might happen, but are very, very, fatal. Can be big or fatal. People say it's okay, it's bad karma, and I saw somewhere on the website that it has to do with being surreal. It's that Jekyll Hyde split of, or maybe not. It's like your first awareness of what is good and evil. Basically, your primary confrontations. Okay, detachment to outcome, results, transitions, transformation, recycling of things that are like, this is why it's called bad karma, because when you make choices that create an effect, it's kind of like a cause and effect sort of thing. You create karma. But karma is not about just the consequences. It's not about like, it's almost like people think sometimes like, I can't get rid of bad karma. I can't get rid of karma. Well, first of all, if you don't want to create more karma, the key to it is really staying present, because you're letting people kind of like someone comes to you angry, and they're just infuriated. Best you can do is what? You don't respond to that. You let them. You just be there. You're present. It's the same thing for yourself. If you're feeling anger, you create space for yourself. You allow for it to just be, instead of being a reaction, or instead of attaching yourself to, okay, so I have this anger, yeah, okay, it's a feeling thing, really. I don't know how to explain it. So that's basically Ixion. A lot of it is also with the strive for material gain. I wrote here inventions against creators, so basically unnatural or unguided egoic creations. Cold/inhumane expressions of malice, or well-intentioned social derailments, emotional insecurity and safety, ethical limits, respect for boundaries of others, original or capricious creativeness, ethics violation, again, crimes, recklessness, lack of concern for potential outcomes of actions, dangers, strive for power and success, again, second chances. But it also comes down to self-reflection, figuring out what your behaviors, why you act a certain way, because it's so, you really want to be carnal. You want to just feel like you want base freedom. I wrote here. It's a good word that I caught on here. Unconscious desires or needs. Okay, so it's animalistic tendencies, and because we want to just be natural. Okay. I also wrote down here, it's transforming lust into love, of one's inner wildness, self-conflict, identification with polarity. Yes, it's about instant gratification, but it's also about knowing that, the past is the past. We have to also learn how to forgive ourselves. Okay. There's so much about this that is Ixion is very much, it's also being judgmental towards yourself when you make a mistake. It's sort of like, because you wanted it this way. It's like black and white sort of feel, where it's like, okay, I'll go with your way, but I don't really want that. It's almost like Lilith, but forgiveness must be a choice made by the individual. So that means that you embrace your animalistic side and at the same time realize that, okay, well, it has its time and place. So there are people that it's really about, it's not about so much about, if you, let's say you have Sun and Ixion conjunct or square, most likely people like those might have difficulty with working with through their like really like core, for you, what is it that makes you happy, the true happiness? Well, basically, as Pam Gregory said, it's your bliss, right? We learn to accept and then that impulse and lust serve a higher purpose. Well, what is that? Because if you think about it, we've been conditioned to behave in a certain way. And Ixion is just telling us that, there are certain urges that we have that we must be able to express healthily, the darkest part of ourselves. I was looking up the other day about issues like, why do people get into, for example, like, the really non-sexual, like kind of disgusting, what we view as disgusting, like scat, bestiality. We're talking like, the crazy stuff, pedophilia, those kind of things. And why do we have those? There's something about it in the subconscious, because there's something about how we associate sexual behavior. This isn't really about sex, but more like what gives us pleasure and how the brain associates that with what is naturally comfortable and naturally pleasing. I read this one post where there was this person who liked people in diapers because it was like it associated with this good relationship they had with their mothers or something like that, like a nurturing side or nurturing parent. And so when they saw someone with wearing a diaper, it's almost they associated that thing with that, because sexual energy is a powerful thing. And the reason why, when we're talking about sexual energy is, if you really pause to be with the sexual energy, you'll see how it's very, it can feel like it's pulling you. But that's because it wants that instant pull. It wants that instant, intense release of, this is why it's associated with the 8th house. More like taboo stuff is related, not sex itself, but like why we get into those in the first place. Because when it comes to the house of endings, like the 8th house, we release that. We want to release and we want to connect with actually the divine, because we know that this body is so limiting, and that the body is sort of a response to that sensation. With the brain, the subconscious has associated that feeling of good sensation with the divine connectedness, but really it can and cannot be. There's a healthier way of expressing sexual desires and lust and all those things without making it unhealthy. In other words, without causing harm. Fetish like uniform, like I have uniform fetish. I also have apparently called spectrophilia, attraction to ghosts. Not, I wouldn't say strong, but it's like, I find that ghost stories, like, being, I don't know if I really have spectrophilia, but I feel like it can get there. But it's very interesting, because it's like, you look at it and you're like, why? Because I know this feeling of like being attracted to like the ether realm, and that the fact that it's like, it's sort of like an escape as well. The 8th house or 8th house stuff, or you could call it Scorpio stuff as well, is very much like that. It's an escape towards something different, because we kind of, it's almost like a unspoken resentment towards what we don't get in this form. So we escape towards something else, something a little bit more high spiritual, but we have an attachment of sexual energy towards that. Sexual energy is, it's creation, but it's creation and destruction in the 8th house. It's both. It's actually together. So that creation and destruction thing is like one and the same thing. Because once you die, it's almost like you're reborn into that. This is why the symbol of the 8th house is a snake eating itself. Right? So this is very much tied to Ixion, that sort of inner nature. And I don't know how to describe this, but it's this powerful pull that we have when we at least when we learn to properly work with this Ixion energy. So we see that Ixion here is conjunct Mars, and with this conjunction, but Mars is actually also is going to be conjunct on January 4th. It's still going to be conjunct Mercury, as you can see here. So this pull that Mercury still has in Sagittarius to express anger is still going to be quite new. There's a sort of a new approach. It's going to approach. Mercury is reaching the last degrees of Sagittarius, so the expression of anger might be still, it still might be like a powerful force, but it's not really, because it's a flexible sign, it's an immutable sign, it can be worked with. Because, it just, once you let it out, I would say the healthier way of expressing it is through exercise, right? But also without harming yourself, right? One of the things we have to learn when it comes to the Sagittarian energy is, it derives from that Scorpio energy, but it wants to release. But it wants to release more out of like opportunity. Now that it has died, that it has been, it's a rebirth, it's a reborn energy of the dark energy of Scorpio, or the dark energy of darkness is nothing but inward processing, it's introspection and all those things, right? Once it's become like this into fire, it's ready to burst and it's ready to go out there. So with Mercury being there still conjunct Mars, there might be this tendency, especially in the last degrees of Sagittarius, it's going to be like expression, and especially because Mars is still going to be new in this case to Capricorn. So this energy of honing down that energy might still be it's an opportunity for us to work with how we can calm ourselves down, not to suppress, but to find a way to express anger, or rather not anger, express that energy. It's that energy of initiative, that action. So when talking about something verbal action, I would say something between communicating, or in this case it's not really communicating, transmission. You can do music as well. It's a form of communication, right? But it's still action. Dancing, it's a form of communication. Get into some sort of dancing and just really let it out. Let yourself just be free in that moment, and without going down into the lower vibrations of anger, but raise it up and say, okay, well, how can I reuse it? Well, once you feel that hit of energy, make a decision right away and go, okay, well, I'm not going to do this one. I'm going to get out of here. I don't want to yell at you. I don't want to cause any more. You don't want to create karma, basically. That's what it is. Because once you have that effect, it'll pass on to someone else. Right? So, wherever you are, wherever you're going to be, especially on January 4th, around this time, like I would say the past few days, weeks, Mars is still going to be there. So, work with that energy of like that fire earth, and learn to, don't say tame, don't go with tame. Find a healthy way of expressing it. Could be anything at all. Like I said, for myself, I would say dance or something, where you're able to transmit, because that's what communication, it's a transmission back and forth of this initiative, right? But also try to be present with it. Do the fucking cold showers. Okay, especially with Ixion there, it's pulling us to be moving towards our bliss, right? With Ixion and Capricorn though, it's moving to bliss that is going to be related a lot with, or a lot to something that will probably give us a lot of feeling of accomplishment. So be patient with yourself. If you fall off the wagon, if you fall off the horse, stay there for a while if you have to. That's okay. That's okay. And then you can get back up. Watch for guidance. And this is a time for, this is part of the awakening process. This is part of elevation. This isn't about perfection. This isn't about going from here to there. This is about this process, being in the moment. Okay. So, with this opposition, however, you notice that there is going to be an opposition here, probably. This one ties directly to the opposition to, let's see if there's one in the other chart here. No, there isn't one. So there's going to be opposition to, at least with this displacement here. I believe this opposition still affects the world, where it's like how we present ourselves. And because, at least with this one, this right here, this opposition is facing I'll get rid of that one. Oh. Is facing ascendant. So that means how we package ourselves into the world. But it's Cancer. So that means that it's going to be, there's going to be a bit of unusual, should I show this? Should I feel like, should I be myself? No, it's nothing to do with others. How you package yourself is how you package yourself based on every single moment. So I would say, like with this square, at least with this conjunction right here, especially with Ixion, that's opposition to ascendant, means that it's a time to process it more about what it means for yourself. Let go of what people think, what you think people should think of you, and just focus on the blessings that you have. Bliss doesn't have to be like, it has to be this thing, it has to be drugs, it has to be sex, it has to be, money, it has to be possessions. Nothing in no. Those are temporary. And you might have heard this, but okay. And this is a time also, Mars in going into Capricorn is a time now to, I guess the word is, what is it? Hunker down? I think there's a term for that. But anyways, to just like be present. Lower your exposure to dopamine high, instant gratification shit. Okay, I'm just putting it out there. Because what does that? I was talking to my nephew during Christmas, and I could tell by the way he was behaving. It's like almost like, it's almost like we live in a society where ADHD is becoming like this. No, it's okay to have it. And I'm like, it's not about okay or not okay to have it. It's about, are we present? Because if we're not present, it means we're not guided. We're not listening. At its core, love, our guidance, our true essence is in the silence. How do we get there if we're not silent? Right? So, this is where Mars is. You already said a lot here. There's not much to... Oh, there is a square here. Let's go with 0 degrees. It's going to be squaring Hercules. So it's going to be right here. Okay, so Hercules is going to be... might be hard for us to figure out what it means to find the courage to stick through and really how do you call this? Let me look for Heracles just to make sure I got the right notes here. Okay. Okay, so it's pretty much like Mars. Okay, but it's a time when we're probably going to come across, if you come across adversity, it's time to work with that energy and find a way to channel it. Right? Again, this will be one of those things. It's definitely tied into your being whole, because it's not just something to do with, Heracles he had the 12 labors, which represent the 12 negative qualities of the zodiac. What that means is that the qualities in ourselves. So all of those, what does that mean? It's about being whole. It's about embracing every single aspect of what we see in others. Start doing shadow work. Do the Wim Hof method. I highly suggest that one. But it is also square Neptune, so we might have also delusions about particularly how you express, because it's 25 degrees, especially Mercury will be square Neptune, and it'll feel like we might, or we get these challenges on what we think is what we believe our thoughts to be. So people might have this feeling of like, I don't know where things are. This is real. Is this real? Is this real? Well, again, this is why perfect timing. I said, go back to the senses, go back to the body, and just be with it. Surrender. If there's anything that Neptune will teach you, it's that when you have delusions, it means that it's time to tell you, well, you want delusions? If this is what you want, this is what you're going to get. Right? There's a creative power in Neptune. So it's also sort of somewhat manifesty. So if this is what you believe in, this is what you're going to get. But if you choose to be more of an observer and be objective about things and say, okay, well, my eyes are fooling me, so that's fine, leave it at that, and go back to the basics, go back to the senses, follow the breathing. So this might be a time where people might again get crazy about what this is this, and then they might express their angers in the wrong way. Yeah, okay. With Ixion here, conjunct Mars, it's also square. It's also going to be squaring, I believe a little, no, eventually it's going to square Lucifer here. So Lucifer, I'm not going to get into that right now because that's not what we're talking about. There's something about that. Don't worry about that. So Mars being in Capricorn, we then have to look into, first of all, actually before we look into Saturn, yeah, so that's all. Yeah, that's that. Okay, so we have Saturn. It's a Saturn replacement in Mars. And Ixion. Where's Saturn though? Saturn is in Pisces. It's in the early signs of Pisces. I did not get to do a Saturn video. Or did I? I think I did. But anyways, so with Saturn and Pisces there, it's definitely, we know just as the fact that when it comes to Saturn, it's when you have limitations, fears about your own personal beliefs, fears about unresolved issues, emotions, things that you might be hiding from yourself, things that are hidden from you, ideals, you might not be able to have this sort of like, it's almost like you question your own, how do you call this, ability to just be free. Okay, we go back, if you go into Pisces and we look at Pisces is about compassion, charity, again, it's creativeness, sympathy, emotions, sacrifice, intuition, introspection, and also artistry, music, dreams, things that are vague, so escapism as well. And so we might be doing the opposite of that. We might be aloof, we might be selfish, we might be feeling like we can't be creative. We just feel like it's blank, there's a blank drawing. It's like, oh my goodness, right? Especially with Mars, it's ruling of of it in Capricorn. Actually, what it'll do is make it a little bit more It will definitely be affected by illusions in a way. It might be affected by a tendency to run away, even though, you know, we have Mars in Capricorn. It's all about being grounded, it's all about being patient and stable and just being disciplined and just working through things. It might be this feeling of like, okay, well, this search for this bliss, especially with Mars, this Ixion conjunction there. It's might feel like, is it? Like, is it okay? I don't know. So it might even be drawn a little bit to escaping towards hard work. You might use other means of escaping, like, because Pisces, because Saturn rules Capricorn. Pisces will add a full color to this conjunction right here. So with Mars and Ixion there, it'll have that Piscean effect to it, not just Capricorn. A stronger Capricorn though, but it'll give it a bit of like that push of like, okay. You start to maybe idealize working hard, and you might kind of go extreme, or you might be kind of like, you might kind of like go back and forth, be indecisive about it, and you might start to procrastinate. You might start to go, okay, I don't know where things are going, just tell me what to do, kind of thing. So you might have a sense of like, I don't know if I should take charge, because it is a mutable sign. But with Capricorn there, it is Earth, it's heavier, and it's a cardinal sign. So therefore it's going to be more about, it's a different type of initiative that if you were to, let's say, Mars in Aries itself, which is at home in Aries. So the initiative part will come through. But in Capricorn, it's going to be more about initiative when it's necessary. Initiative, it's like biding your time and saying, okay, when is the right time? When is it practical? Right? Let's add a bit more to that. So with Capricorn there, caution might be one of those things that you feel you need to have. You might not take action, and you might be a little bit cautious about your, finding your bliss. You might be cautious about, and also perfectionism might be here. You might be a little too, people might start to feel like they need to be serious. They need to be also controlling, domineering, less of the heart, okay, but cold as well, ambitious, okay, judgmental and stubborn. But watch out for those feelings. Again, this is why it's good to go back into grounding yourself. This is one of the good things about Earth, is that you need to ground yourself, but not too much. Let it be let it be softened with some compassion, with that, that Pisces energy. That's what it's telling us. It's like we need to be a bit more compassionate with ourselves, kinder to ourselves, kinder. Therefore, we eventually extend that over. I mean, we're just looking at the placement here in London, right? It's in the descendant, so that means it's about the relationships. It's about being able to relate with others, finding bliss in relationships. Because it is, I believe that this is one of those things where I don't know if, if the angles are part of the reading that I would give for the rest of the world. I'm not sure, but the planets do apply, and the signs do apply here, so I'll leave it at that. There's still things that I'm like learning myself, so not a problem. Oops, I keep turning it away. Okay, so what else is there? Mars is right here. So Mars is in sextile to Saturn as well. So naturally, you can draw upon that energy to figure out, okay, how can I work with that being disciplined? How can I have limitations without sacrificing anything? Without being fearful. Because sometimes when we have too much Saturn, it means that we create our own boundaries. We create this like, okay, well, I'm creating the limit, rather than, is there an actual limit, or am I? It's all up here. Right. So I'm going to include Pele here. Pele is going to affect Mercury and how we communicate, but because it's just basically affecting Mercury, it's going to be more about that explosive energy. It really ties back into Mars here as well. It's explosive. It's learning to cultivate patience, self-mastery. Okay, desire for freedom. So it's a bit like Aries, more mixed with Mars, but also like Scorpio. Ignitability, being able to what you're willing to tolerate. More outlook. Okay, how we express anger, testing of patience, heated affair, dispute, career, power struggles. So very much like both mix of Mars, Pluto / Scorpio, Aries. That's Pele, because she was the goddess. She's the Hawaiian goddess of fire, or volcanic fire. It's a choice we have to make versus transformation or destruction. But it is a kind of duality. Pele shows us the duality of anger, the duality of the fire energy, or fire itself. Like, what does that mean? So before we express our own little egoic ways of thinking and beliefs and the stories in our head, the conceptualizations, we have to look into that and say, that's why meditation is not just a tool. It's not just a method. It's not just technique. It's natural in everything. You just have to look for it again. With it, Mercury conjunct Pele, we would definitely know how to work with that. It's possible. But opposite retrograde Adrastia, what was her name? I took some notes here. Adrastia. Okay. Okay. There might be some sort of things that we can't escape. We feel like we can't escape, like things we have to deal with. Things that we are stuck with, like, for example, family responsibilities, bills to pay, any sort of responsibility. It's very almost Saturn-like. Okay. But it's also about being able to make a decision and figure out that if we're stuck here, how can we change our perception of that? Because otherwise we just get angry. If we're like doing this thing and we don't want to do it, all of a sudden we get resentful and say like, nah, fuck it. And it's like you just want to, so you kind of pull back and forth and one is expressing anger and just bursting out, and then you'll go back to your responsibilities, and then there's this imbalance, right? To bring those together and say, okay, we need to be more discerning, right? So it's where we consider the consequences of choices and how we conceptualize our own reality. So we're here in this lifetime. We have soul contracts. We chose this. So as devil's advocate, when somebody tells you to suck it up, it's not that they're angry at you. Well, they can be, but that's not your choice. What others perceive and it's up to you and how you perceive that. But it's not really about perception, about being in the moment. Remember, even if you look at Eckhart stuff, even just Eckhart stuff, like simple things like that, when you're in the present moment, no matter how it is, you become detached from the identification of what you believe that thing to be, and start to become more released from that and say, it's not a thought thing. It's not even a feeling thing. It's like just being in that space, in that energy, in that here. But it comes with practice. This is a time now to practice those. It's not about meditation as a technique or tool or method anymore. It's not about these things about, oh, it's the age of Aquarius. Oh, this is astrology. Oh, this is a tool. Oh, this is that. Oh, I'm spiritual. Oh, I'm this. I'm elevated. It's all more ego stuff that, so instead being present allows you to say, okay, well, that's the ego stuff. That's okay. And then you accept it. This is what Eckhart meant by surrender. Surrendering has nothing to do with poor me, I have to be weak. Wah, wah. No, it's not. It's really about just being. This is related to real manifesting comes from that silence. Real manifesting comes from being guided. Remember, timeless. Everything is timeless. So when we're timeless and our essence is timeless, why? What is there to complain about? What is there to, because, and yes, sometimes we're afraid that we might come back here and be like, okay, well, we're repeating karma. Well, that's what it is. Every single lesson that we learn, and we're not talking about the whole life itself, but maybe aspects of this life, and then you come back, and then it's really about, and I believe now I understand why there's that veil of forgetfulness, as Dolores mentioned it. The fact that it's like we have the reason we have the veil of forgetfulness, because if we just know it, then we make this option to just go back to old ways and old patterns. But if we didn't, it's almost like there's an imprint of those memories to remind us, just like, okay, how do I work with that? Rather than, do I go back to the past? Do I go back to past lives? Or, do I revert back to, the goal is to be evolving. And by evolving, really what this means is bringing the universe, which is all of us, into this form, okay, so that's what that is. Okay. Right, so, again, it's not about the tool. It's not even about this astrology. This thing is fun for me. Right? This thing is fun for me because there's, all these things. And even something simple, when I go into astrology, I don't care anymore whether I know this or not know this or whatever. It's not about professionality. It's not about professionalism. It's not about any of those things. I'm just enjoying it. At least for me, what I discovered was when I followed this called destiny, this path that I'm in, I'm following that, but I'm not pushing anything. So, don't push anything. Be patient. Enjoy it. Be in the moment. So this whole opposition to Adrastia is telling us, like, being in the moment and saying, okay, you need to work with that energy. And it's going to keep repeating because we might feel like, oh, we're stuck. Well, if you keep believing that, then you're going to be stuck. You can change that energy and also start by being present and say, okay, there's that. And then there's the choices I can make. Right? Okay. So there is that. Okay, so we can also work with the Mars, the Saturn energy. We have mentioned that. What else? Let's look at the other chart here. Oh wait, there is this trine to Jupiter. Okay, so naturally we'd be able to work through this energy of growing into recognition of our bliss, mainly through the body. Mars rules the lower part of the body. So might feel like we need to work with sexual energy. Right? It is the lower part, is the lower organs. That's what Mars rules. And so, but Jupiter rules, I believe, what does Jupiter rule? I'm trying to remember in terms of the body. Right here. I forgot which part of the body it's working with. I believe it's similar to oh, okay. Okay. So the liver, pancreas, pituitary gland, sciatic nerve, tumors, disposition of fats, obesity, and excess. Okay. So liver area with the reproductive organs. The ovaries, adrenals, superadrenals, red blood corpuscles. I don't know what those. Kidneys, resistance to disease, elimination. Okay. Resistance to this elimination of toxins. Okay. So kidney area. So what it's telling me here, not really medical astrology here, but I would say based on this, we have to be, we'll be able to, we can work with this balance, or I guess this, to how to work with, because Jupiter is in Taurus, so we're patient with things, right? But it's in Taurus. So it'll feel like we can indulge on things that we want to indulge in. Could be food, usually it's food, or anything sensual. It could be sex as well. But it is trine Mars in Ixion, so definitely like sex. But we have to also be mindful that, there's going to be things that are going to trigger us and like, whoa. Especially with Jupiter, square Pluto Icarus right here, conjunct Pluto Icarus right here. It's the last degrees of Pluto in Capricorn, so breaking down, but at the same time with Icarus there, we have to be careful of where we're headed, where in terms of like what where we look. Icarus was it's about foolishness, right? So risking things or foolish risks. Okay, ignoring caution, impulsiveness, desire for freedom. With Pluto there, teaching us to be more real. Do we become careless and forget that we live in fragile form, or do we just like fuck it? So it's self-discipline, right? But at the same time, it's like we can indulge. That's totally fine. But how do we indulge is more like the better question. So instead of saying, let's say, something simple, like instead of just having something sugary every day, why not just have it over the weekend? But for some people that might be considered like, it's a reward system. But I mean, if you're, go with that. If you think it's about rewards, use that reward, the belief of the reward, Icarus right here, right? To say, okay, and have faith in that process that it's like, okay, you take things gradually, but towards change, towards lightness, towards ease. Lightness is ease isn't escapism and sex, drugs, and whatever the fuck you want to do. This isn't the past, we need to get away from that toxic stuff. And that's what, that thing that, Pluto is telling us right there. It's like, time to bear down and really be honest with yourself. Right? I say you as in I mean all of us, of course, including myself. And that's one of the things I'm still working on. So with again, we might also be given to delusions with Saturn ruling. Saturn is in Pisces, but Saturn rules Capricorn, and Pisces is still, Pluto is still in Capricorn right now, and will still be. And so, self-discipline doesn't necessarily mean you're punishing yourself, because otherwise that just leads to the opposite. You don't want to be swinging 180 all the time. Right? You want to kind of find the balance and knowing when and where and how and why, all of it, balancing yourself. This is why I always refer to shadow work. With that square in Jupiter, it's telling us to watch out for the indulgence that we have and keeping us awake. It's okay if we take risky moves and it's unnecessary risk, it's foolish risk, rather than little by little towards whatever you were going for. But it still doesn't mean that it's, because you see, again, when we're going back to being present, we step away from attachment to outcome, and even especially the identity of that. But it does take practice. Go back to the breath, go back to grounding yourself. It is also square. Pluto is also squaring Eris right here. Is it? No, it's in 24 degrees. But yeah, it's a little bit off. I don't know why it's not squaring that one, but it is Interesting. 29 degrees. Pluto here. And 24 degrees Eris right here. That should technically be square. It is squaring Eris right now, so that means it's definitely a lot of it is feeling like, who do we include ourselves, who do we include in our lives, or should we be separate from people, should we go with it, or find a balance, right? It's the choice that you make, and you deal with the consequences, and that's what it is. And you really have to say, yes, for lack of better words, suck it up. But that sucking it up isn't a punishment. Sucking it up meaning like just be okay. Surrender to like, okay, well then, okay, I made a mistake. But it's not a mistake. It's a learning process. Because if you're not learning, you're not growing. What, right? So, do you want to be stagnant in like dead water or no? So, there's that effect as well there. But definitely Jupiter, so it's about indulgence and watching out for that. I'm not sure if Bacchus is there. Let's take a look. Okay. We do have Horus. Okay. So Horus is going to be in conjunction with Ixion and Mars. Inner strength. Being able to work through the... How do you call this? It's like you're kind of like you're working towards your own elevation, right? But own doesn't necessarily mean you're by yourself, right? What I hear, I discovered that it's kind of like it's elevating yourself, and working from deep within your own internal past. Could be heredity, ancestry, your DNA. Because it has a lot to do with, Horus represents the 5 clairs. But we don't get the clair just because we do all have the ability to have the clairvoyance, clairsentience, there's the other 3, I forgot what they're called. But the point is that we have to learn how to balance things as well with that energy. So it's the urge to elevate oneself and to self. So it's strength, basically. You have to go in, you have to go within. So this is the time to find the bliss in going within and find that bliss in within. So it's not without, it's not external, it is internal. With the Ixion there, conjunct there, we'll be able to use that energy wisely. Cassandra is here, 26 degrees, conjunct Mars as well. So, validation, when we seek validation from others, because Cassandra is the things that we just know about, but we try to tell others of it, but it doesn't work because if we ignore it ourselves and we kind of feel like Cassandra is being able to have this like precognitive ability. But things that you also take for granted. So if you take it for granted, then others will take you for granted. It's sort of a mirroring effect. Okay? So the point of Cassandra here is to teach us to be trusting in our inner self, our heart guidance. So the key is to remember. But how do we remember? Well, you take the little steps by going inwards. Yes, you can go back to the tool, the methods of meditation, but don't worry about the methods. That's not what matters. Okay? So self-validation, going with your own gifts, and this ability that you know that, okay, if you believe this is to be true about yourself, go with that. Okay, so this is time to work with those energies, especially with Cassandra still also in Sagittarius. It's, having this internal belief that you have this faith inside yourself. You have this wisdom that you carry from the past. You have this wisdom that you carry from and being able to communicate that whether or not people accept it or not. And with it actually squaring Neptune here, you might start to feel like maybe there are people who will accept me. Forget it. you will not get validation from others until you get it from yourself first. Because it's not about the doing, it's about the being. With Neptune also square ascendant, or at least in this case in London, it's going to be delusions of like how you want to perceive, how do you portray yourself to the world, how you present yourself to the world. Again, that's not going to matter. So again, in this video, what we're trying to do is like really focusing on Mars here, anything that revolves around Mars. So again, with that energy of Mars, we need to be able to work through that and process it, especially being in Capricorn, and be patient with it. So it's kind of like step by little baby steps, mini baby steps, you know? Be like a snail, be like the turtle. It's like a tortoise and the hare story. Tortoise is patient, but he still kept moving. Right? You don't want to be the hare that goes like and then you run out of energy. That's what it was. Mars in Sagittarius, that's what it is. Right now we're still in the last few degrees. As I record this video, this is going to be before. The last few degrees of Mars in Sagittarius is just like that rush of energy. It's like this, I can sense it in people. You know, it's like, time to calm down. And I think that's what we're all kind of striving for anyways, to try to balance everything anyways. Okay, so again with Adraste there, Cassandra will be also opposite of Adrastea. So again, this isn't about validation from, you know, when you figure out how to validate yourself, at the very least in a very egoic level. When you learn how to validate yourself, you'll start to realize it's like, oh, okay, well, I do have this purpose right here. I do have the gifts that I have in order to stay. So you never know what gifts you have until you actually you don't know what gifts you have until you open it. You know, I know people, like, for example, my parents, they have presents that they got and they never use it. You don't want to be those people who hoard presents. Why would you hoard a present? A present is meant to be used. So use it. Don't let it sit around. It's the same thing. So, you know, because we feel like we have an obligation to society, we have an obligation to people, our families, our friends, or even lovers, or even to ourselves, we have this obligation to be a certain way. When it's like, it doesn't have to be a certain way. Be in the moment and just be. So that's all I can say for now. We're not talking about the moon, we're talking about the Mars here, so we're not going to go through that. There are a lot of aspects here. I know it probably feels kind of like, oh no, we didn't go through all of them. Those are for other videos. If you do have any questions, as you see this, like this picture right here, this chart, go ahead and post it. But that's all. So be really mindful of just really being present. Again, this isn't really about the mind. Being present all the time. If there's anything we're learning from all this, it's that we can learn to work with energies. Even here, I'm seeing Bacchus right here. It's overindulgence, but Bacchus is not just overindulgence. Bacchus is actually, what did I discover? I had something that was cool about Bacchus. It's self-indulgence, but I learned that, okay, it's where we face the potential consequence of being in denial. Okay, so you appreciate and balance what feels good and natural at the same time. Because Bacchus was not just the god of wine, but the god of harvesting the wine. But before you get harvest, you have to work through you have to grow it. You have to work with. So Bacchus represents the part in us that goes, if I work through this and not go for the outcome, instead of being in the present moment. So Bacchus really represents one of that stuff as well, part of being present. So simply accepting our innate divine gifts and power, and that's through being present as well. Okay, we're in denial of what we have because we're so focused on the outcome. Or like, I don't want to be present. I just want to do. I just want to think. I just want to eat, fuck, sex, drink, whatever. Okay, this is it's either you do this or you do this. you always make the choice. Let's stop focusing, on, oh, I did this and they did this to me and they did this to me because it's my external environment, because of this, because of this. Stop scapegoating. Stop victimizing yourself. And it's time to make those changes. And this is where the Mars I have Mars in Sagittarius. I'm going to say it like fucking it as it is. Okay. Take it or leave it. That's the truth. And you know that that's the truth. You know it's yourself. Okay. So work with that. Go through shadow work. If you have questions, I do have more videos that I'm going to post about astrology and shadow work. Of course, I work with guidance as well. This one came to me and I wanted to post something about it. And there are other things as well. Feel free to post any questions you have. If you don't, that's fine. If you do, great. Okay. Anyways, I do hope that provides a bit of insight, and I do hope that kind of allows you to process things a little bit more. But remember to always be present. It's also doing shadow work, and this is why I got this flag and go, okay, yin and yang is above, so below, finding your own balance in yourself and being whole, right? Cannot be one or the other. This is a part of being in this reality of this 3D world. I hope this helps. I hope it gives you some guidance somehow, and a reminder that even if you don't like it, that's totally fine. What you work within yourself is really completely up to you, because your source is not you, the ego you, but your higher self working through this 3D you. Okay? And if you allow it, it'll work wonders. That includes being patient as well. Forget the outcome, forget the result, but that works. That comes with practice. So my highest suggestion is definitely the cold showers, more like the Wim Hof method. So you do the breathing, so that way you train your body to get used to the cold, and eventually you want colder, and then you start to become more like, meditation becomes easier. Then you can go to other things too that becomes easier. You can do yoga easily. You can just be in the moment easily. You can even go into what is it called? Ho'oponopono. You can do many other things. I found that that's helped me to be more present, because I was getting tired of I'm trying to meditate, but it was like a doing rather than a being. So at least that for me it really helped. In any case, if you have any questions, do feel free to comment. If you don't, I hope I'll see you guys later, and thank you so much for watching. Have a really good week, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.